Welcome, friends, to this edition of the Patrick Coffin Show. My name is Patrick Coffin. We're going to talk about race and politics and hit all the third rail topics we're really not supposed to talk about, at least not frankly, with our guest, Carmen Jaycee. I want to invite you to join the True North movement if you like having crucial conversations about uncomfortable truths that are all the more vital because people are nervous to have these conversations about the most important things in this life and in the life to come. Check out the link. It's patrickcoffin.media. That gives you the access to the three levels of engagement. We call them the balcony, the orchestra, and the opera box. So I do exclusive content. I do commentary. We have an Ask Away Wednesday. Might change that to Thursday. Anyway, we talk about great books and movies that influence the culture in light of the gospel without compromise. So check out patrickcoffin.media for the True North movement. I think you'll like it. My guest is Carmen Jaycee. She is a YouTuber. She's getting bigger and bigger on all social media. You can find her on TikTok and Instagram. She's a very forthright. She doesn't put a lot of varnish or perfume on her message of conservatism as a young Black woman, saying the quiet part out loud. We've done no prep here, so this is just going to be a freewheeling conversation. Carmen, it's an honor to have you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. I am really grateful to be here and just be able to express my ideas in a way that people can actually hear me say what I really mean instead of listening to a 1 minute video about these harsh
Yeah.
topics that we talk about that, certain people can't talk about. So people like myself have to be the one to say it.
Have you always been the person to speak up, like in small groups when you were in school? Were you always the one to say, "Okay, guys, let's get together. We got an assignment here." Do you have that choleric gene
You
that has
know,
always been frank, or were you more of an introvert?
see, I'm introverted now. I used to think that I was extroverted. But
Hmm.
my earliest memory in first grade was, being real close with the teacher and helping her grade papers, right? So I was really great at math. Like I could just, get these numbers together. And it was my whole way up, like I was really good at math. And,
Hmm.
I would say I've always been a leader and a free thinker. So,
Hmm.
I've always been that person from a kid, because I used to be more liberal, and even in that sense, it was in a sense of curiosity of trying to understand everything, asking a lot of questions,
Yeah.
but, eventually I started, challenging myself, and it brought me to where I am now.
Were you raised in a Christian home?
Well, yes, my whole family, I would say, is Christian. Um, I particularly don't know if I'm technically Christian. I
Hmm.
still am kind of going through my process and I have a lot of questions about a lot of things and with how the media works and how the world works. There's a lot of misinformation about a lot of things. So, I just want to
Yep.
make sure I am following what's right and, doing the right things that actually aligns with whatever it is I'm following, right? So if I'm going to be a Christian with Christian values, I want to live as close to Christianity as possible.
This is exactly why I call the community True North. True North is sort of a symbol for permanence, stability, transcendent values. In a way, it's a symbol of heaven. You know, no one says no one says true south or true west, right? It's true north, as opposed to magnetic north. Now, if you're in the Amazon jungle and you're lost and all you have is a compass, you might get out of that temporary jungle, but you're not going to get to true north because the compass only angles you toward magnetic north. And to me, magnetic north are all the shiny metal objects that magnetize us away, including lies. And as you know, because I've seen your bookshelf in the background of your podcast, Eddie Bernays propaganda, kind of big picture, like the large tectonic plates of what's happening in the culture. And you know that the best lies contain half truths. If people are if our ideological opponents just lied to us with big whoppers, nobody would believe them. So like the devil, like the serpent in the garden, did God really say this? Like almost like a doubt planting procedure rather than like a bold neon lie. Make sense?
Yes. And I think that when it comes to, like you said, like lies and interpreting lies. So like I want to talk about like Genesis, right? So like one thing about Genesis and how I've come to understand it, reading a book like Propaganda, to me it was about engineering consent, right? So
Hmm.
in order for the devil to do anything to you, you have to give the devil consent because the devil have no power, right? This is
Hmm.
how I perceived it, just using my own logic and trying to interpret it in the best way I know how. So yeah, to me it was about engineering consent. If the devil had told Eve to do something and she didn't do it, she would still be in God's good grace, right? She would still
Hmm.
be, that person. I look at this about like even with COVID, why do you think they had to go around and ask you multiple times, hey, I'll give you this, I'll give you this, I give you this to take the
Yeah.
vaccine? It's because they need your consent. Because once you consent to things, now you are the person that sin goes on to essentially. So like I am trying to get better at interpreting the world for what it is. And I grew up
Hmm.
with a lot of people essentially trying to tell me things are a certain way or things are like this, but really have done no research, right? So
Yeah.
really haven't tried to actually really find the true north, as I can say, like, right?
Hmm.
Instead of
Hmm.
this fake north. I grew up that's
Yeah.
how I was, like, literally raised, you know? So now I'm just trying to break all these things down and like, "Oh, black people was kings and queens." Like, okay, where is the research for this stuff, right? Where did we
Yeah.
get this?
Hmm.
So I don't know. I guess I'm still kinda going through the process of trying to, figure life out because I guess I had to relearn a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey, but I think God has been taking me on this journey.
The way you get things across kind of reminds me of other Black conservatives. Obviously, you're the minority among your community. I'm thinking about Walter Williams, Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder. Can Comparisons with Candace Owens are kind of inevitable, I would say. And one of the things that white conservatives never ever do is use the language of plantation. But I noticed that when you talk about the default position of so many blacks, it's just automatically assumed that you're going to be part of the democratic machine, which you, I think, have labeled a plantation.
It is
And
plantation.
it makes people so angry. Like when you target, especially maybe we can tie what I'm about to say with Eve and why do you think the serpent chose to dialogue with Eve? Because you've saved a lot of your uh, I would say blunt edged commentary going after the behavior of black women. This the queen mentality, the kind of Instagram spending thousands and thousands on the best purse, the best makeup, the best nails, while their kids are latchkey when they're very very young.
Mhm.
So were you? This is a long-winded way of saying, was your family or most of the people you hung around were they automatically assumed to be Democrat voters?
I mean, they are, and that's just the reality
Mhm.
of being from the Black community, especially, I come from Chicago. So when you come from a city like Chicago, it's a Democratic city. And, I like to describe these things like it's like a Democratic cult at this point. And Black people as a whole are in a cult. And it's like they do everything in groups, large groups, right? So if I seen white people voting for Donald Trump at 90%, I would think that is something wrong with white people because like why are you guys all thinking the same unless something really
Mhm.
like is just like okay, we can clearly see that this thing is working. This is obviously working. So 90% of us are voting this way, right? But when it comes to the black
Mhm.
community, nothing is changing. In fact, it's getting worse. And then you see the policies that is actually compared to these statistics like where you have black women getting at an alarming rate. And it's to the point where, you know, they're like, I need to be able to my baby. Like this is like a adrenaline junkie thing. I need to be able to be irresponsible. And that to me, and to call yourself a Christian is just diabolical Seriously, and then to think like
Mhm.
you if you couple that with this war on Christianity, right? So the war on Christianity is actually bringing me closer to Christianity, right? So I'm like, okay, what is going on? Why don't people like
Mhm.
Jesus? You know? Like
Mhm.
why are
Yeah.
people like attacking Christmas and stuff, you know? And my birthday is on Christmas, you know? So it's like
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, so it's like, why are people attacking Christmas, you know? And it
Mhm.
just makes you wanna dig into it more, right? So, especially me being the person that I am, when I see the media go after certain things, I'm like, "Okay, what is going on here?" You know, and I wanna look at what's happening there, I wanna look at what's going on around it, I wanna look at, other events that happen on this day because I understand how our media works, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kinda lost where I was going there, but
No, no, it makes sense. There's a particular hatred against the Catholic Church, and Catholics have been through this many times. Where, uh, so Catholic teaching 101 is that we believe the source and summit of the Christian life is not the Bible, although the Bible is the written word of God. It's inspired. It has no errors. But the source and summit of our faith is the presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. Jesus announces this in John chapter 6. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. And this gets reaffirmed at the Last Supper in Luke chapter 22. And St. Paul talks about the Eucharist not as a symbol in 1 Corinthians 10 and 11. So you don't see the angry hordes of leftists disrupting like a nice, gentle suburban Baptist church. It always seems to be the Catholic Church that is targeted. Our Holy Communions are stolen from our churches. They're used in satanic rituals. And when someone's on the fence, if they don't belong to the Catholic Church or not yet, this gets their attention. Why is that always the target of so much out of proportion rage? And that can be a backfire to the devil's strategy. Did you see The Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson movie?
Um, I feel like I might have, but it's been so long since I
Yeah,
have. I don't watch
it's really
TV
something
ever,
else.
so
Right, good, good, good.
yeah,
Oh, so you
I
have a life.
listen, I
You
don't
have a
watch
life,
TV
okay,
ever. Yeah,
got you.
yeah,
Well, at the end of the film, after the devil arranges what he wanted to arrange to end his misery, was to get Jesus tortured and it worked. Jesus was tortured and he was but at the end of the film, there's this beautiful teardrop that fills the screen and it kind of goes away from the camera. And that's like kind of symbolic of the tear that God sheds for humanity. And when the tear hits the ground next to the cross, that jump starts the earthquake. And then the next scene after Jesus dies is Satan, by the way, trans. Brilliant of Mel Gibson to cast a woman to play the devil 20 years ago. Um, the devil throws this angry hissy fit, like, and the camera like zooms up. It's almost like, I got the guy, but that's my defeat.
right.
And that's the angelic strategy against the demonic, is that it was like a jujitsu move. Yeah, our Lord let himself die, suffer and die. And that became the greatest good that ever could happen.
Absolutely, and it's one of the, like, most told stories, all over the world, and, Christianity is one of the biggest religions. In fact, it is the, like, biggest religion, but
Yeah.
like I said, personally to me, I realized, like, I literally had to start like, I started listening to the Bible and stuff and just trying to get an understanding because I just didn't understand because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, a lot of people believe in this stuff, right?" And it's not like I
Mhm.
didn't, right? But it was just like I don't think people realize, like, as being a Black person in America, especially a Black person that is a descendant of slavery, when you really don't know like much about your ancestry or your like what religion we really practice or all these things, you're kind of just like
Mhm.
lost inside. And I think that's what like goes to kind of when Black people are like, oh, we're Hebrew Israelites, we were here first, we were the original people, we're this, like we just don't know what we are, and
Mhm.
I think that kind of confusion kind of goes into religion for me because I'm like, okay, God gave me common sense, He gave me free will, and I need to be able to articulate this stuff. Well, be able to understand this stuff and be able to comprehend this stuff for myself and make sure that
Mhm.
I'm following, what's going to lead to my salvation because I don't want to follow someone like a preacher who's telling me like, "Hey, this is the way, this is the way, this is the way," and then all these preachers are wearing like rainbow flags. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's
totally.
like
Mhm.
I really just want to find the true path, because I know that God is within me, you know, and that was one of the things that Jesus taught, and I can feel that, you know.
Yeah, the
So
kingdom of heaven is within you, yeah.
yeah, so it's just
Mhm.
like I truly just I just want to go on this path to really, have that relationship. A lot of people like they want to like they'll say they're Catholic or they're Muslim or whatever, but they're not really living by it. Like, the black
Yeah,
women in 92% of them voted for Kamala Harris. These black women will tell you they're Christians. They will tell you they're
yeah,
supporting death, literally. And it's
yeah.
just like, okay, at what point are we going to use our discernment to understand what it is that Jesus actually died for? So I really
Mhm,
want to know the true Jesus. That's my whole goal in life, and not knowing this made up version of Jesus that is trying to be put onto me, and I don't know,
yeah.
like you said, it's always half truths in, the
Mhm,
lie or a lie or when they're trying to mislead. It's a little bit of the truth in there, so some truth is in there, but you have to be able to discern which part is like, okay, you know?
mhm. Tribalism is a very powerful influence. Uh, this is why I'm really fascinated by the work of a guy that I know you're going to love. His name is Rene Girard, Girard. He came up with this. You could technically call it a theory, but to me, it works out in practice all the time. He called it mimesis, also known as mimetic desire. All my audiences are now nodding because they've heard this 100 times. Mimesis is the insight that we're made to love what others love and hate what they hate. So we'll follow trends, we'll follow fashion things. We'll even do ridiculous things like the ice bucket challenge. You're probably too young to remember the ice bucket
Yeah,
challenge
I
from
know.
10 years ago. People dumped ice water on their heads. People will get in a pub tent and stay camp out on Hollywood for 2 days just to watch the premiere of a movie that's going to be in DVD in a month.
Yeah.
So tribalism, it's very dangerous for Christians to fall into it because you're magnetized away from true north as long as you're so concerned about what your tribe thinks. So here you have a community. You mentioned black women, 92% voted for Kamala Harris, and they'll tick the box. Oh, I'm a Christian. Praise the Lord. I love gospel music, but it's mechanized. It's not really their identity. It's just one more. What's the word? One more, almost like a Boy Scout badge of honor. The thing that they support because it's safe. Doesn't really have any teeth. To say you're Christian, what does that mean? You're a nice person.
Well, you can see that if you pay attention, it shows in the music, okay? It's going down, and then, like, I was completely, like, done with black women when they allowed Glorilla. I don't know if you know who she is, but she is a female rapper who is disgusting. She raps about disgusting things, and they allowed her to win a gospel award, and I thought that was the most disrespectful thing ever. Like, she hasn't even won an award for the actual type of music that she produced, but they
Hmm.
decided that it was okay for Glorilla to win a gospel. Like, who's deciding this stuff at this point? Like, who's in control of who wins these awards? Because I don't even understand why she would be even in the gospel category.
Yeah.
And it's just
And I wonder.
disgusting. It's just such a slap in the face, and I just can't take any of them serious because we allow the most toxic things in our culture, but then turn around and complain about white men and white women and what they're doing and how they're making your life like just
Mhm.
horrible. And it's just like, I kind of grew up around white people. I grew up around black people. You know, Black people did more stuff to me. I'm sorry. It was black people that did more stuff to me than white people. It was me
Mhm.
doing stuff to me before I can ever say that the reason to source to my problems are white people. And I,
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot for people to really just admit that, hey, I am the problem. That's what it is. Like, I am the problem. And that's what I had to do
Yeah.
to get to where I am right now and realize, like, hey, your life is in shambles because you're the problem, you know? And it's just that simple.
The great English writer G.K. Chesterton, if you haven't heard of Chesterton, you will going forward. He was an amazing guy, died in 1936. He was an art school dropout, but one of the best English language writers. And the Times of London asked famous writers at the time and journalists to write essays called What's Wrong with the World? And his essay was, Dear Sirs, I am sincerely G.K. Chesterton. I'm the problem, right? It's just, so check the mirror out first. You're talking about music, and is it Glorilla?
Glorilla. Believe it or
I wonder
not,
if it's her real.
her
Is it
actual
her?
middle
Is it her real
name is
name?
Hallelujah, believe it or not.
Really?
Mm,
Oh,
believe it or not,
okay.
it actually is. It's crazy.
How did we get to the point in our culture where a song like "Baby Don't Go" or "It's Cold Outside," right, the Christmas Carol,
Mhm,
da 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 da. Dean Martin made it famous
mhm.
because it's called somehow. It's this sort of sweet, flirtatious, very innocent song, but that's got to be X'd. That has to be deleted because it's so offensive. And yet, WAP
Oh.
wins every award under the sun. There's no cognitive dissonance for so many people.
I honestly think this right here, these type of things is kind of like where the white community comes in because the white community, like they have like I honestly think the black community and the white community is being pit against each other on
Hmm.
purpose, right? So they're doing this thing where we are making white people feel like it's not okay to be white, and then we're making black people feel extra proud of dysfunction, right? So now we're kind of pitting these two communities against each other where we got them being victims and then these guys are the scapegoats. They're the guys
Hmm.
that did everything, even though, most of them didn't own slaves. Well, actually, if we're talking about today, none of these people owned slaves and none of the people that are alive today were slaves, right? So I think it's like just a conversation that is just so old that why are we even having this conversation? But I think
Hmm.
white people in America have to do a better job at just being okay with being white. Like, not just it's okay to be white, but I am proud of my nationality. I am proud that I am a white person in America. Whatever, background it comes from. But white people have to speak up more. It's not going to just be people like myself. People have to speak up based off of truth, right? That true north.
Hmm.
We have to speak up based
Yeah.
off of that, and a lot of white people are scared to speak up because they don't wanna get labeled racist. They don't wanna be called a bigot, or they don't wanna be called a, anti whatever, like, I think white people have to do a much better job speaking up, like, and taking the heat because I get it, like, when you think about, like, Shiloh Hendrix and she whatever, she was one of them people that got doxxed and because she spoke up, I don't and I don't know what drove her to the point of, using that type of language. I don't know what drove her there, but I do know that,
Tell us, for people who didn't follow the story, JC, tell us what's the compressed version of that? What you're
so
referring
it's
to?
essentially, the story where Shiloh Hendrix was, like, in a park, and then I think this black kid stole
Oh yeah.
something out of, her bag. Or a kid's diaper bag or something like that, and
Yeah.
she called the kid the N-word, right?
Yeah.
And it just got so blown out of proportion where they were, like, doxing her, asking for her job to be gone and all of these things, and it's like, okay, do I think that she shoulda called the kid a N-word? Probably not, but do I think that her whole life should be ruined for saying a word? No, I don't, I actually don't think this is a racist country. I think that people try to make it racist, right? They try like you have all these liberals who are white that are like trying to say like, "Hey, we want this for these black people or whatever," even though I think that if anybody was racist, they would be the racist. And then you have the conservatives that are like, "Hey, but black people, we know what you can do. We know that you're capable. We know that you are
Mhm.
no better than us or we are no better than you." And it just
Yeah.
just it's just not a racist country. It's really played, and a lot of people choose to live in that because of trauma or you know, indoctrination. A lot of us grow up telling our children these things. So, yeah, like, I just think that white people I think if we let go of racism, if white people was like, "Hey, look, this is just dysfunctional behavior coming out of the Black community. I don't care if you get upset with me, but this is what's happening. It is dysfunctional, it is
Yeah.
disgusting, and I don't wanna live around it, I don't want my children around it," I'm okay with
Hmm.
hearing that. I think I wanna hear a lot more of that. That's just me,
Do you
though.
think this? Do you think the? Yeah, fair enough. The I think you're right about the deliberate nature of the division between the races. The phrase is not unite and conquer, right? It's divide and conquer. I could be wrong. My little homespun historical theory is that this began in the mid 60s under Lyndon Baines Johnson and his misbegotten Democrat War on Poverty,
Mhm,
where the black family began to disengage from its Christian roots. Many black families they they had the same basic divorce rate as whites. Their families were much more intact pre 1965. And then when contraception just became the norm, then you had the sexual revolution, then you had Roe v. Wade in 1973. It all kind of came apart. But before then, now I wasn't alive then, so I'm filtering this through books like Slaughter of Cities by E. Michael Jones, where he talks about before the early mid '60s, whites in Chicago didn't think of themselves as white. They were German, they were Lithuanian, they were Irish, and then the racial politics under LBJ came in, and now everything is skin color. Well, as a Christian, my message is, brother, if all you have is skin color, you don't have very much. There's nothing to do with identity, nothing to do with morals, nothing to do with the kind of culture you built. So, but nowadays, black family life pre 1965 is demonized as like it's all Jim Crow, it was all evil. Have you thought about this? That what happened in the '60s?
Actually, I did because I know, like, even like with the single mother rate, like you said, it was very low at that time. And, then we implemented welfare, which completely destroyed the Black family. And this is why I actually talk about Black women a lot because I always say that Black women are agents of the government. So you traded in family for funding, essentially, and you don't have to work hard anymore because the government pays you. And not only do the government pay you, this is a part on the government too, because why are we paying people to have children? You know, why are you rewarding people for bad behavior? And it's kind of goes hand in hand, but the denigration of the Black family is completely what we're seeing today, right? So this is what it all boils down to. This is the most important thing that we have to be worried about, essentially. And I like to talk about the sisterhood because it's just like this sisterhood of Black women who you just not you like you can't correct them, you can't tell them anything, you cannot talk about anything with them. And if you do talk about them, they all come and they come together, and then they'll jump on you, and they'll destroy you.
Hmm.
And then they don't like each other though either, right? So it's not like this sisterhood is like it's a completely fake sisterhood because they're like going at it with each other all the time. This is what they do when they're not attacking people. But then the moment someone says something about the sisterhood, they come together. They stop going at it with each other, they come together, and then they get on the person. So right now, Black women are not able to be corrected even by the Black men. They've basically neutered the Black man, and then they raise their offspring to be these neutered versions of men that they hate. Okay. So now they're raising men that they hate. They completely hate these men and they don't want to be with them. So then now we're getting to the point where they're just like, you know what? I just won't deal with men, or I'll just, go date white men. A lot of them go for older white men who just really is just trying to have a good time, and it's probably not going to hold them as accountable and probably are more liberal. So, they go for these guys and they'll try to trick themselves into this soft life thing, which is just traditionalism. You want a guy to pay for your stuff, you want him to take care of you. It's a traditional lifestyle. You don't want to say it's traditional. And yeah, these women are the problem. These women is directly the problem. And I'm not saying there's no accountability on the Black man side, but the Black women are working directly with the government. They're the ones that's raising the children. They're the ones that's keeping the men out. So, unless Black women change their minds, Black culture is like completely, it is dead. It will not change.
True or false? Woman is the standard of civilization.
True. True. And
This all Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say a lot of people think that, it's just men, but I think women behind every powerful man there is a woman, right? That's why they want these presidents to have a family. You have to have that family structure to actually be whole and actually move a nation forward. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, as the marriage, so the family, as the family, so the community, as the community, so the nation. It's all tied together. In Christian history, the most important human person ever is the Blessed Mother, the mother of Jesus. Not a priest, not a pope, not a cardinal, a woman, especially the woman who gave the word flesh. And that's not lip service; it's just anthropological fact. All this hate you're talking about, the infighting and the it's like a pool of misery. Does this explain the high proportion of public fistfights? Every time I go on the internet, there's like a milli fistfight of mostly black women.
It's
Is
black
that something
women
that
and it's
someone's?
their children. Pay attention to what's happening. The older black men, you'll see black men doing dysfunctional thing, but not at the rate that you see black women doing dysfunctional things, right? And if it is black men, it's the younger one, it's their children. Okay, so it's black women and it's the children that they're raising that are on the internet acting out, and black men are kind of on the sidelines, like, "Hey guys, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe black men is trying to tell black women, but black women, they are uncorrectable. Okay. You can't tell them anything because they're the most educated group in America. Okay. They're the most educated, according to them, which is absolutely not a fact. They're actually, I would argue, the dumbest group in America. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can say that on here. But yeah, this what you're seeing is the sisterhood. Those women are a part of this sisterhood and they hate each other. Okay? They hate each other, but they are in a cult. And because they're in this cult, the cult matters before everything, right? So they'll protect the cult, but they still hate each other. Right. So you'll see them fighting. They're sleeping with each other's men. Like they had a trend going around and it just was completely disgusting. It was black women, and not maybe other races of women were doing it, but my algorithm fed me black women. And they were taking pictures with their boyfriend's kid and saying, I'm taking a picture with my boyfriend kid and posting it online because what is the baby mama going to do it about it? And it's like, okay, so you guys are antagonizing each other. You're doing this mean girl thing, but you guys are a part of this same sisterhood, which is like I said, it's just completely fake, you know. And then they have all these alarming statistics, but if you bring it up to them, they literally deflect and bring it back onto black men. Literally. If I tell them their obesity rate is up, their STD rate is up, you guys are more than likely to raise criminals. 70% of you guys are single mothers. They are most in debt. They have so many alarming, most depressed. Okay. So many alarming statistics, but you cannot tell them anything. So you can't do anything about it until you get the sisterhood, you break the sisterhood down, nothing's going to change because black men have essentially been neutered.
This goes back to Genesis, doesn't it? When the serpent finally gets Eve to eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, she says, the scripture says, then she handed it to her husband, and he ate of it. Well, wait a second. Her husband was there. The presupposition is that Adam was silent. He let it all happen. He watched this dialogue unfold. He didn't really interject. He didn't defend her from this dragon, which is what he should have done. So the silence of Adam is part of the ingredients of the fall. And this is
Absolutely.
just playing out in a different way today with what you're saying.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And, I don't know what could be done, if the one, because like women, okay, so I have a friend that says if a large group of women supports anything, it is a scam. Right? So I started like seriously, and at first I was like, he would always say this, and I'm just like, what? And then I start paying attention to it, right? And I'm just thinking like, okay, women mostly go to college. It's a large group of them that's going to college. They're the most educated, but then you take a look at who's making the money, and you realize it's men, you know. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
as a large group of women doing anything. Women are mostly vegan. They're the ones that are pushing like this feminism thing, They're pushing they're the ones they're pushing everything that is just not good. It is just
Trans,
it's
trans, trans rights, trans kids. It's all
it's women.
it's a mom driven movement. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just started paying attention to that, and it sounds so harsh, okay? Because I don't know if you have a whole bunch of women here, like, I'm not trying to say you guys are scam artists or it's just that women are easier to manipulate, right? And if you which is what happened with Eve, essentially, right? She was
Yep.
manipulated,
Yep. Yep.
and we're just we are more emotional creatures, so that's why we need men. This is where men come in. This is where family comes in, right? Because the
hmm
man is the logic behind it, and he can keep you grounded. Because
Yeah.
women without men is just destruction, unfortunately.
It's vive la différence. Everywhere you go, you walk out your front door, look left or look right, go in downtown Chicago, you're going to look at something that was designed by a man. Architecture, construction, rebuilding, it's all built by men. But men didn't suffer greatly to bring new life into this world. So this is mutual complementarity that God has designed. We can't, we literally, the human race ends without that two in one flesh unity. But now our society has so democratized everything. Everything is flattened and equalized. You're not allowed to talk about sex differences because that's anti-woman somehow. You're not allowed to talk about attributes of certain either races or physiognomy or I'm not sure if you remember the firing of Larry Summers. Larry Summers was the very hard left president of Harvard University, and he made a speech in front of a bunch of engineers and mathematicians, and he just made the common sense observation, trying to understand why men dominate that whole field, and he made some offhand reference to innate differences. And maybe this is a handful of women got up with their spiky hair and they made a big deal about slamming the door behind them. And the pressure built. And finally, he was fired.
Wow, that's crazy.
And well, yeah, yeah, look it up. Larry Summers, he's played by actually a friend of mine in the film Social, what's it called? About the founding of Facebook. Because he was a part of the story of how Facebook founded
That's very
back
interesting.
then.
Very interesting. I have
Yeah.
my same friend also, like, I'll go back and forth about this male, female, like, because he's really into the Bible, like, really into the word. And
Mhm.
he would tell me things like, "Do you know any female geniuses?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "No, there are no female that are geniuses." And I'm like, because we provide different value, but it does make sense, right? So when you put things to people like that, like, "Hey,
Mhm.
why is it like that? Why do men naturally just dominate way more than females?" And just if you let females be free and choose their field of where they want to study, they don't go towards those fields anyways, right? So they're not going
Yeah.
towards like engineering and all this stuff. They're like, okay, I want to be a social worker, and this is why they don't
Yeah.
make money. You know, so I think that
Mhm.
we're just innately different. And, some of the things of the past might have been for a reason. Let's just say that, right? And I'm going to
Yeah.
say like something that is going to be really controversial. I'm not saying that women shouldn't vote, but I'm saying some things are just for a reason, right?
No,
Sometimes,
Jason, Carmen, I'm really glad you're bringing this up. We're
okay.
not even allowed to talk about the reasons why people were on the anti-suffragette side back when women were given the so-called right to vote. There's a comedian named Owen Benjamin. He has a funny line. Part of his stand-up act. He's talking to men in the audience. He goes, "Guys, women's vote, letting women vote. How did we lose that one?"
No, seriously though. Like seriously though. How did you get? And I'm a woman, and I have enough sense to understand that I'm not the rule, right? Maybe more of the exception. So I understand that I'm kind of going to be collateral damage in that sense of, hey, maybe my husband should be the one to vote, and he should vote for his family.
Well, one thing that it did was began to fracture the family. That the husband was pitted against the wife, and 99.9% of television political ads are geared toward emotive appeals and music and heartthrob stories. Women voted in Barack Obama. Women voted in Bill Clinton. Women voted in Justin Trudeau. Oh, but his hair and his story. It's like the reason for voting is no longer policy. It's personality and image. Another just to get myself even in more trouble. From a professional comedy point of view, women aren't funny. The women, so in other words, femininity is about something far more profound and beautiful and rich and wise than just being funny. The class clown is always the boy. It's not never the girl.
Mm.
And so the women who do rise to the top of the professional comedy world, and by that I mean stand up, they're all very mannish or
Mm-hmm.
Ellen
Interesting.
Ellen, Lily Tomlin, Margaret Cho, Rosie O'Donnell,
Oh,
Carol
well,
Burnett.
and men don't like
It's just a
women that
long
play
list.
basketball either. Huh. Sorry to say that one
Yeah,
too.
no,
You guys actually lose
it's
money. So pay you what you're worth. You owe us some money, okay? The WNBA owes money to everybody because you guys actually don't make anything and you want to get paid what you're worth, so you owe us. And I'm
yeah.
not saying that they're not worth anything. I'm just saying that people just don't want to see it. They just don't wanna see, maybe put on some little bitty shorts and, like, a little, I don't know, maybe people will wanna see it because they like to see feminine women. I'm sorry, some little skirts like
Maybe
cheerleaders.
that's the TV. Maybe that explains the TV appeal of beach volleyball because those women
Yeah,
are not wearing army issue
y
dresses.
yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know how we got here with women,
Mm,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I don't wanna
Well,
get you in too
this
much
is a,
trouble.
this. Well, no, I think there's an analogy between the differences between men and women and the differences between the races. And this is a nice segue to an interview that I recommend. I'll try to put it in the show notes. It's with a filmmaker and writer named Aaron Russo, Russo. May he rest in peace. He was interviewed by, I think it was Alex Jones back in the 90s. And Russo recounts the story of meeting David Rockefeller, the son of John D. Rockefeller, the billionaire scion of the Rockefellers, and he wanted to meet Aaron Russo. So this meeting over dinner was set up in Manhattan, and in the middle of it, Rockefeller says to Aaron, "So, what's feminism to you? What's the women's liberation movement?" And he said, "Oh, well, it's equal rights for equal pay and dignity and so on." He goes, "Yeah, that makes you an idiot. Why? Our foundation funded the feminist movement in the 1960s. That's the PR veneer we put on why we're doing this. Bra burning, you go girl, that whole culture
Mhm.
to liberate women. But really, we wanted to get women out of the house and into the workplace because that chopped wages in half and increased the number of taxes that we could draw in. And the mother's no longer the primary educator of the kids. The nanny state is through public education. So
Absolutely.
that's the historical origin of the feminist movement,
That
underwritten by
that's actually
groups
interesting
like that.
because that goes back to, like, the Edward Bernays thing where they were trying to, like, get women to smoke cigarettes. They're like, "Okay, we have males. Okay, how can we
Yeah.
get women to smoke more?" And then they made it all
Mhm,
about liberation, and they were like, "Hey, this is, torches of freedom." This is what they called it, and that's how
yeah.
they actually got women to smoke cigarettes. So that's actually
You've come a long way, baby. Remember that? That was the tagline. You've come a long way, baby. Like,
Yeah.
choking on smoke is really good for
Yeah,
you and
and
your
they
kids.
made it like wow, that's interesting. Yeah, and this is not to even get on women, but it's just, women are just easily manipulated because they appeal. I think I compare black women, I mean, not black women, I compare women and black people, right? So how women act and how black people act because they were raised by women is very similar, right? So they'll appeal to black
Mhm,
people in the same manner, they'll give them BLM, give their you, white man bad, they do the same, like the
mhm,
same tactics they use on women, they use on black people because black people, the average black person was raised by a woman, you know,
mhm.
with the public education system.
Yeah. I don't want to throw too many books into the conversation, but I've always been an avid reader, and I think the most amount of wisdom is not found in TikTok; it's in books. And one of them is by Dr. Paul Vitz, Vitz, and it's called Faith of the Fatherless. And Dr. Vitz is a former atheist, and what he did was he did background histories of the main fathers and mothers of modernity. So Sigmund Freud, um, let's see, I guess Margaret Mead, Richard Dawkins. Trying to think of who else. Alfred Adler, major, what's his name? Bertrand Russell, famous atheists who had an influence, say, this generation and the generation before. And they all have one thing in common: they all had abusive or absent fathers. So the father's role in the family is the most important for faith formation, because Jesus says God is a father. Now that's not, it doesn't mean that God has XY chromosomes. It's not biological sex, but it's spiritual. God is masculine. God is the initiator of everything that is. And of course, the masculine needs the feminine as the husband needs the wife, but there's that beautiful balance. And I wonder if the loss of Christian faith among Black communities tied to the flight from men from their responsibilities and the destruction of the family through, we talk about white flight from suburbs, but what about husband flight or father flight from the family unit? See what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think that, I think that's absolutely right, and it's so it's more of because I think these people actually still go to church and stuff. Like, I think they actually still it's just the not living by it. I don't understand, like, because it's like it's become to the point where they're telling you, like, "Oh, you can just do whatever and just long as you ask for, forgiveness, it's okay, you know? So
Mhm.
they've muddled it down to this just, be whatever you wanna be, but, just come back and ask for forgiveness, and now people think that they can do whatever they want. I used to always say, like, I'm not a Christian, but I feel like I'm more Christian than the Christians, because I actually live
Mhm.
by, this Christian way of being. Because I can say, like, "Okay, well, I don't do this or I want to get married before I whatever. Where did you get it from?" And most of it does come from like Christianity, So these are my
Mhm.
beliefs. But, I think that it's just how society have loosened up on accountability, especially when it comes to women. Anything pertaining to women, believe all women, the Me Too movement, and they're actually liars, okay? And they just tell you to just believe women just simply because they're women. And women are actually like a big voting base, like you said. So these are like a major target, especially if you get minorities with women and all these other things. You can kind of like X out the logical people. I always tell people, like, that, like, with Donald Trump, I'm not even, like, super political, like, "Oh, I love Donald Trump," or whatever, or I'm not a political person, but I do like Donald Trump and what he's doing. But I always tell people, like, "Do you want this country to be ran by minorities? Because I don't, right? I like that this is a white country. This being a white country has worked, okay? And we have a lot of flaws in this country, but I don't want this to be a majority, like, what is it? The people of color, Black, Indigenous, and I don't know what it's called, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I don't know.
I can't
I
keep
don't keep
can't
up
keep
with
up
the
with the
terms.
lingo.
Yeah, I can't keep up
Yeah.
with it. But, I think that, I don't want this country to be a country filled with a lot of, you know, non-white people. And I'm not saying that in a manner that's I don't want people to be in this country. I do. But I think that this is a white country and it has worked that way. Okay. That's what makes it work
Mhm.
because we have
Mhm.
the right people running the country. But then when you turn it into, let's say, Mexico, look at their country. Look at what's going on in Mexico. Do you want this to be Mexico? Do you want this to be Africa? None of these people want to go back to Africa. Okay. If they wanted to go back, I'm sure people be willing to
Yeah.
send them back to Africa, okay, with all the dysfunction coming from Black people. So what are we doing here? We want this to be a white country with order and, with God, country of God. And I think a lot of people kind of don't see that because of emotionality.
Well, it's not the Canadian dream or the Swedish dream or the Denmark dream. It's the American dream, and it has to do with this. It's not unlimited freedom because all freedom comes with some limits, but you notice that Muslims flee to Christian countries. There's no lineup to go back to Yemen or pick your pick your Muslim origin country. They go and they emigrate, and often they don't really want to assimilate. They're like parasites on a host.
Yeah, I
And and I just one more note on that. I don't know any Christian conservative who's white who wouldn't jump up and down thanking God if tomorrow the entire Supreme Court was run by black conservatives, every AG office, every governor, every um, state senator, if they're all black conservatives, like hallelujah, because it's about worldview, it's about the culture, not skin color. Skin color is way downstream from the things that are most important. Do you agree?
I told you so I have this photo on my Instagram where I made it, and I it's so perfect because it says it's like it's me holding this sign, and it says it's not a skin problem, it's a sin problem, you know?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and it's just so perfect because it's really not a skin problem, you know? You don't go outside into your Trader Joe's. I don't go to Trader Joe's and feel like these people are looking at me weird, like, they are, like, worried about me being black, you know? Like, no, actually, it's not. I just don't have those issues personally, so, I can't
Mm.
relate to, you know, people telling me that I should be worried about the color of my skin, and I can't do things when you have Beyonce who is a billionaire, basically, with her husband who is black, might I add, or with Oprah and Tyler Perry and all these black people who literally have done it despite. And then they're the same people that would tell you you can't do it, mind you. And I actually
Mm.
find it weird that you don't have any black people out here telling you about accountability. Where are the people that are speaking about accountability and self-improvement and actually doing something for yourself to make a difference in your life? We just don't have them. We don't have these role models whatsoever. The people at the top, the people
Mm.
at the bottom, these everybody is basically behaving in the same manner, just dressed up differently, you know? They have more
Do you
aesthetic to
think?
them.
Mhm. I am sure, I have not done any deep research on this, but I'm sure that you get an unbelievable amount of hatred and resentment and maybe your share of threats. Do you ever get high fives? Do people ever kind of come back to you, back channel, saying keep it, even if they don't want to publicly, ally with Carmen Jaycee, they do appreciate what you do?
You
Do you have,
know,
like, in other words, silent fans?
I actually get more love than hate, believe it or not.
Mm.
And I do get some hate about my content. Like my mom's friend, I was just with my mom and her friend. She came from Atlanta to come to Chicago, and I was at my mom's house, and her friend was like, "Girl, get your daughter off the internet." And then, like saying like I'm crazy. And then she said, "But when I started to listen, and I realized like, wait, I agree." So I think first it hits people trauma because I use the same tactic that Eric Benes used, right? I'm using the same tactics that you got, the people that are in the media are using. They're attacking you with trauma, so they're getting you pulling on your heartstrings, and I do the exact I'm doing that same tactic where I'm like, hey, black women are the dumbest group in America. That gets people's attention. And then I can hit you with a couple logic. I can hit you with some logic after that. So once people are able to get past like the shock value and actually like, okay, well, she
Yeah.
is saying things that actually make sense. It actually is fine. I don't get as much hate as people would actually believe because I think the world is actually waking up. A lot of Black America is actually waking up, and they're seeing the dysfunction, they're seeing how low the culture have gone. So it's actually not as bad as it was. Like my first video that I ever made, just like that went like kind of viral. Everybody were
Mhm.
telling me I was stupid for, like, 3 days straight, And honestly, when I first came out, I wasn't planning on focusing, like, so much on the Black issues how I am now, but you get people calling you stupid for 3 days straight, and they have all these issues in their community. Yeah, I kinda just went on the attack like, "Oh, you guys gonna call me stupid? Well, do you guys know that you guys are each other? Do you guys realize the single motherhood rate in your country? Do you realize that you guys are getting fed behind plexiglass because you guys are like animals? Are you guys talking about me? I don't get fed by plexiglass?" So I kind of just like went on the attack because like, how dare you guys attack me for saying something objectively true that Serena Williams should not have crip walked in front of 100 million people, and I was the bad guy. So that kind of just like
Yeah.
made a monster out of me when the black community came for me. I wanted to teach them about like politics and like about propaganda and about all this stuff. I wanted to try to get, do the nicey nice way, like, hey, this is propaganda. Let me tell you guys. And then they attacked me, and I just kind of went like, oh, hmm, "Oh, this is what we're doing. You guys want spicy, Carmen. Got it." And I just became this
Mm.
person.
So the rage bait attacks backfired, and that really got your attention about where you needed to lean in,
Yeah.
because that's counterintuitive. A lot of people would go, "Oh my gosh, I want to be liked so much. These are so mean. Maybe I'll get more soft in my content." But you went the upstream toward the like a Secret Service person going to the sound of the gunfire.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, is this what we're doing? Got it. Okay, guys." That was
Let
nice.
me ask you a question about pro life movement, and then we'll. I want to thank you for your time. Or I could talk to you for a few more hours, and I'm sure we'd just be scratching the surface. Well-meaning white pro life activists will say things like Margaret Sanger, the founders of Planned Parenthood, was a racist. She was a eugenicist, which she was. She also founded the previous iteration was called the Birth Control League,
Mhm.
which tells you a link. I wrote a whole book on this called The Contraception Deception. The key to is not better contraception, it's no contraception. They are fruit and root of the same tree. But they'll say things like Planned Parenthood is racist to this day because they target black neighborhoods. Do you think they're targeting black neighborhoods because they're just following in the racist shadow of Margaret Sanger, or are they going where they know the customers are? Like take the discourse one step deeper. See what I'm getting at? Now it's very considered outrageous to even say this, but they're they're not missionaries. Planned Parenthood is there to make money, and they're kind of going where the money trail is. So is there a different way to couch the Planned Parenthood activity in urban centers, other than just to label her as a racist?
Well, I would say that they probably think that she's a racist, and because I've read some of her letters that she's written to like Dr. Corey Gamble and about, getting like these pastors and stuff on board, which is, they usually go to the pastors, to get them, which is why I told you I have such a, like think with the church, and not necessarily the church, but the pastors that do this. But she went and got these pastors to kinda convince people to be like, "Hey, this is okay. It's fine if you do this." And I think that like, racism, I don't know how to, because I just think racism is such a taught thing that, like, I don't even really, like, think it's like, I think there are people that are racist, but then when you read people like Thomas Sowell, and he tell you so much about the behavior that was happening back in that time and how people behaved versus, so then I look at today how people behave, and I'm like, okay, well, is this racism, or is this like, hey, they're behaving a certain way? So I don't know. So I really don't know. I haven't done enough research on it, but I will say that, it is more about money. Everything is about money. Everything is not about, like hey, I want to get the black race out of here. Like, no, these people are the people that are going to come and abort their babies, and they will probably do it whether it was in their neighborhoods or not. Okay. Where they had to go
Mhm.
further to abort their babies. They were probably going to do it because they have people like Beyonce that comes up on stage and tell them that you should be able to abort your baby. You know, so I think that this is a decision making issue. Like racism can't make you go abort your baby. You aborted your baby because you went and aborted your baby, like it's not because of racism. So me, I'm just really on the accountability train where I'm like, okay, even if there was systemic racism, whatever, back then, okay, who cares? Our ancestors were slaves and they overcame. Okay. They were doing better than we are and they were slaves. Right. So, yeah, I'm just on the accountability train where I just don't want to hear excuses. I don't care. I don't care if she was a racist, okay? I don't care if she wanted to X out the black race. I just don't care, you know? I care about the decisions you make so you don't fall into the trap. That's what I care about. And that's kind of what it
Mhm.
is.
Shortest distance between my audience and you, Carmen, Jaycee, Jayce. It's pretty consistent across TikTok and Twitter, and you got a YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Where that's your handle? I'll proceed it, but with the at symbol.
Yep, that is my handle, Carmen JC. If you type it in on all platforms, you should be able to find me. I'm not as active on X, but I still check my DMs and I do go on X a little bit, but not really. But all platforms, my most popular platform would be YouTube. I do long form content. I kind of post some short form content, but I do the most content there. And then like TikTok, if you want that more raw style content, TikTok and Instagram would be the place to go to hear me
Mhm.
rant.
Spicy Carmen version. Even more unfiltered.
I know it's actually wild.
Well, people, you want to pay attention to the book Propaganda that Carmen and I were talking about. Eddie Bernays is considered the father of propaganda and also public relations. He was on the David Letterman into the 90s. He lived a long time, and he was the nephew of a guy by the name of Sigmund Freud. So he adopted a lot of the psychoanalytical, unconscious vulnerabilities of the human person to sell propaganda.
Oh, can I
That's one
add to
thing that
that?
drew me to you, Carmen. Is
I
what's
wanna
that? Yeah,
I
sure,
wanna
go
add
ahead.
something to that.
Yep,
Yeah, and
yeah.
also, I believe he have a nephew, his name is Randolph, Bernays, and he is the co-founder of Netflix, okay? So,
I did not know.
yeah, so if you guys pay attention, like, when you have these Netflix platforms, I don't watch TV at all. Those are other propaganda schemes that it'll tell you these stories, and they'll try to make you feel all soft inside for, like, Jeffrey Dahmer or something, but he was a and that's just what it is. It's nothing else outside of that. You shouldn't feel sorry for him. You shouldn't feel sorry for his upbringing or anything. He did what he did because of who he was. And I just want you
Yeah.
to know that the propaganda doesn't stop with these people who are ancient. But yeah, this guy, he was totally like the nephew of Edward Bernays. I think his name is Mark Randolph. I
Mm.
think I just got it there. That'll be his name. Okay.
A dynasty of propaganda. Interesting.
Hmm.
All right. Carmen, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed this, and I'm sure it's going to get both of us in a different flavor of hot water. The same guy Chesterton said that the best way to stay clean is to remain in hot water. So
Thank you so much.
awesome. All right. God bless.
God bless you as
This is
well.
the Patrick Coffin Show. Check out the True North Movement inside patrickcoffin.media. And in the meantime, be a saint. What else is there?